Hello everyone, I'm Kaye Cosplay, and welcome to my 3-part series on how to make heat transfer rhinestone applique. I'll show you how to design a stencil, how to make an applique, and how to iron it to your costume. In this video, I'll demonstrate how I use Adobe Illustrator to make the stencil, how I select the different types of rhinestones to use, and where I like to purchase my products. You can use the techniques in this video for many different projects and costumes. Great examples include Elsa from Frozen and Yukari from Paradise Kiss. But in this video, I'll be making a version of Ponyo from Studio Ghibli based on the design created by Hannah Alexander Artwork. Hannah's design features repeats of intricate rhinestoning along the top band of the dress, so creating applique ahead of time will make the rhinestoning process significantly easier and more precise than it would be to freehand the design. I begin by figuring out the size I want the applique to be and take some measurements of my costume. I know that the total length of the band is 50 inches, and I figured out that I wanted 11 repeats of the design. So by dividing 50 by 11, I got just over 4.5 inches for the horizontal measurement. Then taking into consideration of my seam allowances, the vertical length is 2.5 inches tall. I'm using Adobe Illustrator to map out my rhinestone design, and I start by creating guides for the size of my applique. First, I made a rectangle bounding box and then just dragged the guides around the edges and marked the centers. Then I placed in a copy of the original artwork by Hannah Alexander to use as a template. I cropped the image and then scaled it to fit inside the guides. And then just lower the opacity so you can easily work on top of the layer. Once I have a good idea of how large of an area I'm working with, I head over to do some online window shopping for the rhinestones. My favorite store for Swarovski rhinestones is dreamtimecreations.com. I love how large their selection is, they have wonderful customer service, and they always ship really fast. Because the method I'm using to make my applique is for heat transfer, that means I need to use hot fix rhinestones. Hot fix means that there's a thin layer of glue already on the back of the stone, and once heat is applied to the top, the glue melts and sticks the rhinestone to your project. Using hotfix rhinestones is my preferred method and is completely mess-free and is much quicker and easier than gluing rhinestones by hand. So I do some searching for hotfix rhinestones in all different shapes and colors until I find the ones that work with my design. The Dreamtime Creations website is really helpful because they include measurements of the rhinestones in the product description. Then I flip back over to Illustrator and create an object the exact same dimensions as the rhinestone that I'm working with, so I know that my design stencil is going to fit the size of the rhinestone exactly. I play around in Illustrator to make as many shapes as needed to represent each of my different size, style, and color of rhinestone. I find it helpful to copy and paste the product description next to a copy of my rhinestone object to refer back to and use as a key for purchasing the products later. For round rhinestones, I use the ellipse tool, type in the dimensions in millimeters, and change the color so it represents the color of the stone. Then I do the same thing for the emerald-shaped stones by using the rounded rectangle tool. For teardrop rhinestones, I start with the rectangle in the correct dimensions and then curve the bottoms to be rounded and bring the top to a point. Just play around with the shape tools until you get an object similar enough to the rhinestones. The shape doesn't need to be perfect, as long as the size is correct and to scale. Then I just arrange the rhinestone objects over the original artwork until it looks the way that I want. A tip for making copies of a shape around a perfect circle is to use the rotate tool. Just select the object, click the rotate tool, and then click on where you'd like the center of the circle to be while holding down the Alt key. I made it a little easier for myself by adding in a circle so I can figure out exactly where the center will be. Then type in 360, followed by / and how many objects you'd like to copy around the circle to get an even division. Click copy and use Command D to repeat the action all the way around the circle. Try your best at getting your stencil design to line up with the original artwork, but also keep in mind that it's not always going to be perfect. Focus on making sure that the shape spacing and alignment is right for how you will be placing it onto your costume. You can see that as I'm working on this, some of the shapes are going beyond the artwork, and that's okay. As long as everything is even and to scale, it will look correct when it's all finished. Now that I'm finished with one half, I select all of the objects, copy and paste it to the other side, and then mirror and rotate them into place. Then all you need to do is print out your design to scale and you're ready to begin making some heat transfer rhinestone applique. The final step is to count how many rhinestones needed per applique and then multiply that by how many additional appliques you will need. For example, I created 11 identical rhinestone appliques for my Ponyo cosplay, so I needed to be sure to order enough rhinestones for 11 copies of the design. To keep the cost down, I only purchased about half of my rhinestones from dreamtimecreations.com and the others I purchased from Amazon. I chose to use Swarovski stones for the larger and more prominent ones and used the Amazon stones for the smaller ones. Don't feel like you need to order expensive rhinestones for your costumes. The selection available on Amazon and similar stores is perfect, and more often, less expensive. Using the Swarovski brand rhinestones was just a personal preference. If you found this tutorial helpful or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all learned something new and I can't wait to share more costuming and cosplay tips with you. See you soon!